They called me just a gate guard, a title meant to shrink me to erase every sacrifice I had made. But when danger stormed my sister's wedding, the same words that mocked me became the proof of who I truly was. My name is Riley Hart. I'm 31, a former military police officer who has spent her life being overlooked by my ambitious sister, by my image-obsessed father, and by a world that values status more than service. But dignity doesn't need their approval, and courage doesn't wait for applause. If my story moved, you share your thoughts below. Tell me, have you ever been underestimated, dismissed, or pushed aside, only to prove your worth in a way no one expected? Subscribe, join the conversation, and let's remind the world together, honor cannot be erased. I wasn't supposed to be the center of attention, my sister made sure of that. Still, her laughter cut sharper than any blade. She's just a gate guard. The chandelier light shimmered too brightly, throwing everything into an artificial glow. Newport's summer air smelled of salt and roses, but inside the resort ballroom it was all money, pearls, pressed tuxedos, polite laughter. Veronica thrived in it, sweeping through with that lawyer's smile, perfectly rehearsed, designed to wound without leaving fingerprints. She made the introduction with a flourish. "Everyone, this is my sister. She's just a gate guard." Heads tilted, a few chuckles escaped, the kind that say, "We understand our place is not hers." My jaw ached as I bit down, tasting metal. I had heard this tone before. At 17, ready to ship out for basic, my father raised a glass to Veronica's law school acceptance, forgetting my bus ticket on the table. My girl, he called her, never looking at me. Now he wore a banker's linen suit, drifting between men with cufflinks worth more than my rent. "This is Riley," he repeated. "She's a gate guard, not a job description, an indictment." I murmured greetings, then slipped into silence, letting the tide of conversation close over me. The quartet shifted keys. A waiter slid me water. Across the room, Jordan Blake, the photographer, lowered his camera long enough to nod at me. No pity. Recognition. Humiliation is noisy outside and quiet within. I counted exit staff movements, the instincts that never left me. From Veronica's table came synchronized laughter. One bridesmaid leaned close and whispered just loud enough. "She doesn't belong here." The words clawed open an older wound. A letter from home, once addressed to my sister instead of me, proof of how easily people erased me. My mother's voice surfaced from memory. "Don't let them erase you." Veronica glided past again, eyes gleaming, still in security. "Someone has to check IDs." Her smile was a scalpel. "Someone does." I answered evenly before lifting the glass to end the exchange. A man near her chuckled with relief. Conversation resumed around me, seating charts, vintages, designer contracts. I let my shoulders square inch by inch, reclaiming the posture they had tried to fold. Jordan circled again, camera clicking, recording what no one else would admit. Later, Veronica lifted her glass. "To family," she declared, "and to the ones who keep the doors closed when they should be open." Laughter swelled like champagne bubbles breaking. My expression stayed carved in stone. I wasn't supposed to be the center of attention. Fine. I didn't need a center. I needed a spine, and mine was exactly where I left it. If they expect me to walk out, they'll be disappointed. My father's voice carried across the ballroom. "This is my daughter Riley. She's a gate guard." He might as well have said I worked at the mall. The chandeliers sparkled above linen-draped tables, champagne bubbling in every glass. Newport's late summer air clung even inside, perfumed by money and quiet disdain. Charles moved with banker's ease, his arm brushing Eleanor's as she trailed behind. "Your sister has a lot on her mind," she whispered to me, but the words felt like perfume over rust. Veronica made certain her sneer carried. Surrounded by bridesmaids, she let her voice fall just above the music. "She doesn't belong here." Laughter rose and fell like a quick storm. I stood straighter, willing my lungs to steady. My father repeated his introduction to another cluster of men. She's a gate guard, and their polite nods felt like stamps on a passport I'd never use. I excused myself, the restroom mirror catching the tight line of my mouth. I sat in a stall phone, glowing. "Mistake coming here," I typed. The reply came fast from an old army friend, "Stand tall. Remember who you are." The words landed like armor. As I stepped back into the noise, my mother's voice returned too. "Don't let them erase you." The orchestra softened. Gossip sharpened. Jordan lingered with his camera, capturing moments no one else would. He stopped long enough to murmur, "They don't see you, but I do." His lens clicked once, sealing proof in light. Eleanor intercepted me again, offering that my father just translates pride poorly. I nodded, though I wondered how anyone mistranslated their own daughter so consistently. At another table, Veronica raised her glass. "To family, friends, and those who keep doors closed when they should be open." The laugh that followed cut deeper than the words. Memories clawed back my father's toast to Veronica's law school, ignoring my enlistment. The mailroom letter, once misaddressed, corrected only by a weary sergeant, each reminder stacked on tonight's insult. A guest leaned near, remarking, "It must be nice to switch off after work." I almost told her vigilance never sleeps, but I only smiled. Then Veronica climbed the bandstand. Diamonds scattered light across her dress as she lifted her glass again. "One more," she said, savoring the silence. "To the truth, we all know some of us were made for rooms like this, and some of us never belonged." Applause rolled through the hall, clean and unhesitating. I didn't flinch. I let the sting settle, shoulders locked, eyes forward. They wanted to write my story tonight, but tomorrow the pen would be in my hand. Tomorrow I won't let them write my story. The music swelled, but all I heard was the hollow clatter of a tray dropped by a nervous hand. My instincts kicked in, something was off. The ballroom still hummed from Veronica's toast laughter, trailing like smoke through the gilded air. Guests drifted toward the gardens, balancing flutes of champagne as if they were props in a play. I followed the flow, the salt air sharper outside, mingling with roses planted in deliberate rows. Behind the glamour, something rattled, too rough for crystal. Years of standing post came back in a rush, the catalog of sounds, the snap judgments you make when hesitation is a liability. Near the service entrance, two catering staff huddled, voices clipped. One shifted a crate that sagged his arms. Too heavy for bottles, too rigid for fruit. I slowed, feigning admiration for the roses, every sense leaning toward them. The glint of metal at the edge of canvas made my stomach tighten. My father's line, "She's just a gate guard," collided with memory of convoys I had checked under floodlights. I knew contraband weight when I saw it. I slid my phone from my clutch screen, glowing. "Keep your camera ready," I typed to Jordan. Seconds later, I heard the soft click of his shutter from across the courtyard. He angled casually, lens catching more than decor. Through the corner of my eye, I saw the faint flash reflect off steel buried in fabric. Proof, even if blurred. The staffer noticed me watching. His gaze cut sharp, then smoothed into a service smile. "Just champagne," he said, voice too quick. "Wedding tomorrow, lot of supplies." He nudged the crate farther into shadow. I nodded, letting the silence carry weight I didn't need to speak. I moved along the corridor, senses taut. Veronica's voice found me before I could settle. "Of course," she said, lips curved in victory, still loitering like security. "You can't help yourself, can you?" She didn't wait for an answer. Her heels clicked away, a metronome of disdain. She hadn't noticed the men behind her. She never looked where service began. Her insult only sharpened my resolve. I slipped near the restricted door. One of the staff pressed against it, fumbling keys. I stepped into his path, posture casual but firm. "Staff only," he muttered. "And your family," I said. "And you're sweating over wine crates." His hand froze. His smile cracked. "A beat too long." He cursed under his breath, retreating with a glare that promised unfinished business. The door swung shut before I could read the lock, but the moment sealed it. Whatever he carried wasn't meant for celebration. Jordan approached, camera swinging low. He didn't speak, but he tapped his lens once, subtle. Later I would see the blurred image, metal edges where bottles should be. Tonight it was enough that someone else saw. Enough that I wasn't crazy in a room designed to make me doubt myself. The night pressed closer. I walked the garden paths alone, petals drooping under humidity, and thought of every dismissal I'd endured. Veronica's sneer, my father's rehearsed line, the guests' laughter. They thought the worst I could do was sulk. They had no idea what vigilance could uncover when sharpened by humiliation. I rested my palm against the stone balustrade, breath steadying. Tomorrow wasn't just her wedding, it was a stage, and I had just glimpsed the script. Tomorrow, I won't just guard the gate. I'll guard the whole damn wedding. Vows were moments away when the sharp command shattered the air. Nobody move. The world tilted, white linens, golden roses, and guns. The tent froze under its chandeliers. Guests stiffened, pearls, trembling champagne flutes stilled midair. The leader's pistol swept the aisle, 2 others breaking toward the gifts and bar with ruthless efficiency. Veronica clutched our father, her breath jagged, while Daniel stood like a wax figure at the altar. Jewelry, watches, phones, the leader barked, dropping a bag with a thud. The lie "nobody gets hurt" was the same lie I'd heard at checkpoints overseas. My body reacted before thought could. I stepped into the aisle, posture calm, eyes tracking every angle. Jordan stood at the edge, camera lowered but watching me. I brushed my earring, a signal. His lens rose silently. One robber shoved the bag toward trembling guests. I let the crowd's panic mask my move, lifting my left hand so the ring caught sunlight. "Take it," I said evenly. "Just keep the gun off him." I nodded toward Charles. The leader's gaze latched onto the glitter. Greed narrowed his world. He stepped closer. The moment stretched, then snapped. My right hand caught the slide, jerking the muzzle aside as my left hammered his wrist. The gun barked skyward, crystals quivering. Training took over, pivot, torque strip. He collapsed against me, body turning into cover. "Down," I shouted, forcing him into a chair as Jordan's shutter stuttered like a second heartbeat. The second robber swung his gun. A centerpiece flew from a desperate hand, scattering petals, buying me seconds. Veronica screamed as the third man clawed for her necklace. Instinct shoved me between them, shoulder driving him off balance. "Move," I ordered her without looking. For once, she obeyed. Pinned beneath my knee, the leader spat curses, but the clatter of his gun hitting the parquet broke his spell. I pressed him down, voice calm enough for the crowd. "Everyone breathe. Put it in the bag and step back." The bar gunman hesitated, expecting chaos, finding choreography. Jordan's camera flashed proof, etched forever. I heard myself say it steady, and final, gate guard or not, I just guarded your lives. The silence that followed was heavier than any gun. My father's eyes widened as if he had never seen me before. Eleanor's hand covered her mouth. Daniel finally exhaled. Sirens wailed closer. Panic spread through the remaining men. The one at the bar bolted through the tense seam, tearing fabric in his flight. The other seized a bridesmaid, dragging her toward the catering corridor, her cry slicing through the stunned hush. Chairs crashed, prayers tangled with gasps, and the room fractured into helpless clusters. I handed the captured gun butt first to a trembling resort guard. "Hold him," I ordered, my tone brooking no refusal. Then I squared myself toward the torn canvas and the hostage dragged into shadow. As police sirens near, one robber flees into the catering hall with a bridesmaid as hostage. Riley steels herself for the final confrontation. Yesterday, I was mocked as a gate guard. Today they stand to applaud me, some choking back shame, others unable to meet my eyes. The resort's dining hall gleamed with Sunday sunlight, panes of glass pouring brightness across tables heavy with silver urns and fruit displays. Guests gathered with lowered voices, their gazes shifting to the television screens mounted along the walls. Footage looped on repeat the moment the masked robber lunged, the flash of my ring, the sharp turn that brought him down. In freeze-frame clarity, I shielded Veronica with my own body. The images needed no narration. Whispers cut through the clatter of cutlery. She saved us all. Did you see the way she moved? Shoulders turned toward me with a weight different from the night before. Where there had been sneers, there was awe and unease at the memory of laughter they had shared at my expense. Veronica tried to wrest the air back. She rose, her smile pulled taut, her glass trembling slightly. "Please don't let her steal my day," she declared. The plea cracked in the hush. Heads turned away. Some guests frowned, others looked at her as if she'd spoken a profanity in a church. She faltered, her stage collapsing under the very audience she had sought to dazzle. Charles sat rigid at first, his jaw set. Then, as if some tide pulled him forward, he stood. His glass lifted, trembling not from age but from the quake of something long resisted. To Riley he said, voice carrying in a way no banker's speech had the night before, "She saved more than this wedding, she saved all of us." The words hung like a bell note ringing through the hall. Applause rose cautiously, then steadier, cresting into a sound no one could take back. Veronica's eyes darted, searching for an ally. None came. She sank into her chair, her shoulders tight, her face pale against the flood of light. Jordan stepped forward, his camera slung but his voice clear. "She saw it before anyone else," he told the nearest cluster of reporters. "She texted me to keep my lens ready. Without her, none of us would have had warning. And now, the world has proof." The shutters fired in chorus, the scene itself already spilling into tomorrow's headlines. Microphones pressed closer. "Miss Hart, what do you have to say? Were you afraid?" Their questions piled like waves. I breathed steadily, my palms resting against linen, no tremor left. "Gateguard or not," I said, letting the silence part for my words. "I guard what matters. Yesterday it was your lives. Today it's my worth, and no one erases it again." The room held its breath. Then applause burst like surf on stone, rolling over hesitation, filling the hall with something larger than vindication. It was recognition, late, imperfect, but undeniable. I stepped back from the crowd and drifted onto the balcony. The ocean stretched, endless salt air lifting the heaviness from my chest. Jordan followed, camera raised, catching me not in battle, but in peace. He snapped one last candid frame, no need for a pose. "This is only the beginning," I whispered, watching waves break open against the shore, knowing for once that the story was mine to write. I never imagined my own family would laugh at me, dismiss me, and try to erase who I was. Yet in the very moment they scorned me, I found the strength to prove my worth. Not through anger, but through action. Now I ask you, stand with me. Leave your thoughts, your support, your reflections. Tell me if you've ever felt underestimated and how you fought back. Your words are not just comments, they're reminders that dignity and justice matter.